Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we'll be talking about the film A Haunting in Venice. Fun fact, Poirot was created by Dame Agatha Christie and is in 33 of her novels and more than 50 of her short stories, and he was also the first fictional character to have an obituary in the New York Times. This movie came out in 2023 and stars Kenneth Branagh, Tina Fey, and Kelly Reilly and was directed by Kenneth Branagh. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. A Haunting in Venice follows a retired Hercule Poirot who gets invited to a seance to talk to the daughter of a woman who was supposedly killed by some ghost children. After the medium is murdered, he once again puts on his detective hat to figure out who the killer is and finds out that this won't be the only murder that he will have to solve by the end of the night. A Haunting in Venice is a thrilling whodunit. It has similar vibes to Knives Out, Clue, or Murder on the Orient Express. These Poirot whodunit movies are always so interesting because I always think I am a better detective than him and that I can figure out who did the crime, but I never can. These murder movies are so interactive because they get the viewer in on the fun with them making up their own theories about who did the crime. This movie was kind of like a reverse from the Murder on the Orient Express movie in terms of there being multiple murders in this movie and a single murderer instead of one murder with multiple murderers like it was in the Orient Express movie, which I think caught me off guard because I thought that there was going to be multiple killers. It was still really fun to put together this puzzle as the movie went on and trying to guess who the killer was. One thing I learned in these movies is some of the biggest names that you see on the roster is usually who's going to die first, which in this case was Michelle Yeoh. For a moment, I wondered who would be the person that was killed, but then it kind of came to light when she opened a can of worms when she was implying that the daughter who they were contacting from the beyond didn't commit suicide and instead was murdered by someone, which made her a target. It feels like the big names are there to draw people in, even though they won't be in the movie for a long period of time, which might upset some people, but I think it's an interesting tactic. Venice was a cool place to have this movie be set, especially with them being on the canals to help further show that they are trapped and they are not able to escape the interrogation of Poirot. It's cool how these films always find a location that is isolated or there is a set of circumstances that prevents the potential suspects from leaving. Like I said earlier, I was convinced that it was a killer for each of the persons that died. So I spent most of the film figuring out who were the killers in this film, and I really couldn't figure out who were the killers for all of the people, only to figure out it was only Rowena. When it comes to the doctor, I immediately knew that she was somehow involved in his killing because she really stated heavily that she gave Perot the only key that was made to enter that room, which made her scream of suspicious behavior. This film tried to have more creepy vibes, and while I think it's creepier than the past films, it really wasn't that scary if that's what they were going for. There was an attempt at a jump scare with a quick cut in the beginning of the film that seemed like it was intended to scare the viewer, but instead, all I really noticed was that this cutaway to another scene was too slow for it to kind of be like a jump scare, and it wasn't really that scary. To add to the spooky vibes, Perot is getting haunted by these ghosts, which we come to find out is likely because he's been poisoned, but it did add to the feel of the creepiness in this movie. The lighting was cool in this film and reminded me of old horror films, especially when there is a close up of Perot and like half of his face is lit to show the direction that the light is coming from and how there is a lack of light in the room. I think that the lighting of this movie was perfect to further immerse the viewer in this movie and add to the creepiness, but to also show that in this time period that this film is set in, light is something that is not so easily available like it is in the present day. I love how Perot solves this murder but doesn't turn in the other people who may be innocent of murder but are guilty of other things. Most of the things that they are guilty for really aren't that serious, and Perot figures out that they have been through enough and keeps it all to himself. My favorite part of this movie was Perot putting everything together to announce the killer. It's a moment that solidified some of my guesses and made some connections to stuff I may have missed. It was interesting to see how his mind works and how he was able to put all of this together to solve this crime. A Haunting in Venice is a spooky murder mystery that will have you putting on your detective shoes. While I think it misses the mark on some of the jump scares and has some pacing issues, the story is interesting and the cast was great. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you have not subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.